So the hosts over at Fox Business Network have apparently had enough of the poll denialism coming from the Trump campaign, and one of them kind of snapped on a Trump surrogate. Watch this.
Why is President Trump trailing Joe Biden, who has barely been out on the campaign trail, and his only presence is really, out of his house? He's trailing in national polls. He's trailing in all the swing state polls. And Valerie Jarrett pivots to the here and now because the number one issue for Americans is the coronavirus. It's not the economy. It's not even race relations. And according to the latest Fox News poll, President Trump trails Joe Biden on doing a better job on coronavirus by 17 points. Why isn't the president's message resonating then?
Well, first of all, a lot of those polls are junk. We can talk about methodology and science on those.
That's a cop-out. You can argue that they don't indicate how the election turns out. That's fine. But that's just a cop-out, Hogan.
It's not a cop-out when the numbers bear out the fact that 10% more Democrats are surveyed in these polls than there were in 2016. That's just sheer mathematics. I can't change that. So they are skewed to the left for sure. But if we're talking about coronavirus, that's the beauty of this election. So many times we're talking in the abstract. What would it look like if somebody were president? You don't have to guess what it would look like for pandemic responses under Joe Biden. He was in the office of the White House for 8 years. And when H1N1 swine flu hit this country, all he did was shut down testing and said, we're not going to report because 60 million Americans have it. Who cares?
These polls clearly matter to you and the president because he's changed his position and tone based on that very polling to focus more on the virus because you're losing on that subject.
Never did I think we would see a Fox News host or a Fox Business host who otherwise is incredibly sympathetic to Republicans and Trump be that aggressive against Trump. That is really something. And notice what it took. It took repeated attempts to deny the polling numbers and the state of the race. And they let them go for a long time, guys. They really let them go for a long time. And then after a while, they're just like, okay, but how can you possibly change the state of the race in your direction if you don't acknowledge the state of the race? You can't mount a comeback if you're not even acknowledging that you need a comeback. Do you not understand that this hurts your electoral chances? Do you not get that? It should be readily apparent. It should be completely obvious. So, this is what it took for them to finally be like, seriously? Come on, that's a cop-out. It is the definition of a cop-out, and they've been doing it all along. So there's one point at the end there that I want to address because I thought this just shows you how totally out of it they are. He brings up, swine flu, the swine flu death rate. Like, oh my God, Biden wants to hit him on COVID-19. Well, what about swine flu under him and Obama? I can't believe that they're using that poor of an argument because, again, when you look at the death rate, it depends which number you go by, but even the top number, it's anywhere from like 4,000 to about 12,000 deaths in the U.S. from swine flu. Guys, with COVID-19, we're talking about 150,000 so far, and we're not even close to done. Now, you could say, hey, it's different viruses, it's apples and oranges, so maybe it's not the exact right comparison. I didn't bring it up! He brought it up! He brought it up! So this is what I'm trying to get through to you guys. You can't lean into all of your shittiness and then hope that you're going to come out looking better. Why would you bring up an issue wherein, in that range of comparison, he would crush you? Why would you do such a thing? It makes no sense. Which brings me back to the main point of this segment, responding to what he said there. So this is their line. It's been their line for a long time. Oh, they're junk polls. It's fake news. They're fake news polls. Now, there's a couple things I want to say in response to that. There were a few polls in 2016 where Trump was actually up over Hillary. Why is it that the polls where he was up weren't fake news? Any poll that came out with him up or close, he would tweet it and he would brag about it. So let me get this straight. Those polls are real, but the polls from the same companies at other times which showed him down, they're not real. Fake news when he's down, real news when he's up. Beyond that, let's grant him what he said for a second. Man, the polls, they're biased statistically in favor of the Democrats. Why would the Democrats want to do that? Because if anything, that'll suppress turnout. If people get overconfident and they think Biden has this giant lead, that'll lead more people to stay at home and not vote for Biden, thinking he has it in the bag. So why would the Democrats actively work on a polling conspiracy that would hurt their electoral chances? It would defy logic. If anything, the Trump administration should like that fact, because then it'll spur his voters to the polls and it'll depress turnout among the Democrats. But like, even if you grant them, okay, the polls are fake, they're skewed in favor of the Democrats, we already looked, there's already been an analysis done where they said, what if there was the same number of secret pro-Trump voters that turned out in 2020 as did in 2016? In 2016, there was some contingent of voters who weren't telling pollsters that they were pro-Trump, but they showed up and they voted for Trump. Okay, fair enough. So if we had the same set of facts this time in 2020, what would happen? Biden would still win over 300 electoral votes. Even in a scenario where there is a secret pro-Trump turnout, Biden would win 310 electoral votes. So you can't, there's no amount of screaming junk polls, fake news, that's going to fix this situation. When you look at the average of polls, okay, Hillary was up 2 to 4 points nationally. Biden's up 9. That's not a little thing. He's always been up more than the margin of error. Did you know that in 2016 in July, a poll came out that showed Trump up over Hillary? The most recent polls we've seen in July of 2020, it was Trump down 13 and 15 respectively. You can't just swat that away, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to swat it away. So, listen, bottom line is this, man. A poll came out in Virginia specifically. The number one issue to the American people right now is coronavirus. You want to know what Trump's approval was on coronavirus in Virginia? 19%. That's an electoral death sentence for Trump. Completely. There's no way around that. Even if he has good debates and Biden shits himself, he would lose. You can't have a 19% approval rating on the most important issue to the American people and get away with it. It can't happen. So when even your closest allies and your friends are telling the campaign, like, listen, bro, you got to wake up, skis. You got to do something. You have to change course. You have to do it. When even your top allies are telling you that, you know it's real. So I'll be very curious to see if there's ever any acknowledgement of the reality of the race. If there will ever be a moment of like, yes, we're down and we're going to push through. It's happened, but it was only brief, and it was Trump with a side comment that he didn't even realize he made. He was talking to Sean Hannity, and he said about Biden, like, this guy's going to be your president. This guy's going to be your president, so, like, he will win, which is an acknowledgement, like, I know I'm down right now. But he moved on quickly, and then, you know, I'm sure the next day he said something which overrode that, which was like, no, we're up. But, yeah, this is, it's crazy. And it does kind of fit in perfectly with the narrative that you do have on the Republican side of the aisle. There is, like, kind of an open embracing of some genuinely anti-intellectual positions. I'm not saying you can't go through the methodology of polls. Lord knows we've done it before, and Lord knows we've seen problems, for sure. But it's not every single poll. It's not every single poll. It's not all fake news. It can't just be swatted away. You know, it's a trend. It's a trend, and it's real. And this fits right in with the same kind of Republican Party that would argue that climate change isn't real and evolution isn't real. Like, this fits in perfectly with that anti-intellectualism streak, but it's just so brazen and in your face now that Fox hosts are like, come on, bro.